Hello again, folks. I just watched a video which was really invigorating because it was, well, among other reasons, it was by a guy who I have a great amount of respect for, actually, for considering how little I know of the guy. The guy's name is Dean Clifford, and those of you who've watched some of my videos know that uh, there's this guy Dean Clifford who's a guy who I would explain, from what I can see anyways, is a man who's willing to live his conscience. And also, if you've watched some of my videos, you would realize that one of my opinions is that if people sincerely live their conscience, they either end up being like completely. They either end up on a cross or hanging from a noose around their neck or electrocuted or, thrown in jail in solitary confinement and so on. And well, Dean hasn't ended up on a cross or a noose around his neck yet. He certainly has spent probably an equivalent of several years in jail in so-called Canada, basically as a political prisoner, from what I can understand, and many months of that in solitary confinement, um, with no convictions while he was there. I mean, it's absolutely astounding. But nevertheless, he doesn't stop, and he had spent, I think it was 16 months in jail this last time, which ended, I think, in about March of 2015 here. And for a while, he kind of just took him a while to readjust, it seems like, because, I mean, he had a lot of business he had to deal with getting out after that long and sort of what went on in the world, etc. But this last video I watched, which was just this September, he seems to have got his stride back. And I love that so much. Not that I agree with everything he says or even his approach, but I have a great deal of respect for somebody who's willing to lay lay on the line his way of living and not give a shit what anybody thinks. Um, you know, I sort of liken, and I'm going to do a more of a video than this. This is just a touch on. I'm going to do a video, a kind of a fan video in a way, in a few days, hopefully, which is a little bit more organized, um, about Dean, as far from one man's perspective, that is. But Dean, in a way, he reminds me a little bit of my dad. Um, Once again, didn't agree with everything my dad did, but Dad was, in a different way though. But Dad was very religious, okay, but he didn't care what anybody thought. If something was important to him, in regards to his religion, it it didn't matter whether somebody thought what he was doing was asinine or whatever. It didn't matter. It was the right thing for him, and he was going to do it. Be damned. Um, for example, one time I remember we used to go on these camping trips, very brief camping trips, because Dad would get riled up about something every time, especially with the boys, because we might actually want to go talk to somebody else at this next campsite or something. And Dad he was very much of a, well, he was religious fundamentalist. And remember this one time we had gone to Newfoundland from Nova Scotia and took the ferry across. We were going to go and camp in this one little town, and then come back the following day. But Dad had to go to church, right? It was like, not going to church was, I don't know what it would be equivalent to. It would be equivalent to being dishonest or killing somebody or something. It was just outrageous. So we were going to go over on a Saturday, spend Sunday there, and then come back. And he assumed in this small town there would be a church that he'd go to church at. And we got off the ferry, and the first thing Dad did is he went charging up to town. We were kids, we were having a hard time keeping up with him, and because he realized that if he couldn't find a church, he had to get back on the ferry to get back over to Nova Scotia to get a church. So he just starts hollering as loud as he can, "Hey, does anybody know what time Mass is?" Finally, everybody started running away, and Dad finally turned to me and he says, "I don't know if those people think I'm drunk or mad or both." And so once he didn't find anybody with a response, he said, "Well, we better get back on that ferry." So we went on, and it was about, if I remember, it was about a 12-hour ferry ride one way, right? So we got back on the ferry and went back the night trip, and got back, and we were able to go to Mass in the morning. But anyways, just an example. But at the time I thought he was nuts. But now I have kind of a great degree of respect for him, because at least he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. And that's what I have a lot of respect for Dean for, is he actually seems to walk it. And he says it like it is. It doesn't matter if it's a judge, a so-called judge, who commits what he sees as fraud right in front of his eyes. He'll call him a fucking asshole. And that's what I like about him is he's able to wear his anger. And there's been people tell him, Dean, calm that anger down. But that wouldn't be Dean, right? Because that's I mean, those things anger him. They rile him up, right? I've heard people say, look, you got to lose the anger. It's not going to work. You got to lose the anger. You got to show the love. And I think maybe Dean's right. I mean, maybe there's people who've got to take that edge. They've got to take that edge. There's a variety of people. There's going to be people who show the love. There's got to be people who say, look, this is bullshit what's going on. Whether it's politics or whatever, somebody's got to stand up and say, this is bullshit. And Dean is able to do that, and he's willing to do that, and he takes it over the, he gets clobbered for it. He spends time in jail and so on. And I, like I say, wouldn't do all that myself, but he's doing it. Not only is he doing that, but he's leading this whole new Earth Stewardship project, which I'm trying to learn a little bit about, so I can make a little report on it, which is basically, it looks very much like there's no real remedy in this system, even though it's set up so that it's supposed to be remedy. The system is that you toe the line, or else we're just going to make you toe the line, or we're just going to clobber you until you go away. That's what he seems to be understanding or getting now, is that there is really no solution in that system. It's so rotten that it's time to just create another system, maybe. And, people can agree or disagree with whether that's the right approach. Of course, there's going to be people going to argue about all kinds of things, whether that's the right approach or not. And honestly, I don't know for sure. How do I have a crystal ball? I don't know. But what's admirable is that somebody's taking a stand and doing something. Not just talking about it, but actually doing something. And that's what's admirable. So yeah, the two things I really admire about Dean as I see it right now is he's somebody who lives his conscience in terms of what he's doing, and he pays the consequences. And he's also acting. He's not just fighting the system. He's also branching out and trying to create an alternative competitive system, if you will. So I hope to have more in the not too distant future on this, as I see it. And Dean, if you watch this, thank you for putting the message out that you put out. I do say in my videos that I don't really know you very much, because I don't. I've never actually sat down with you man to man and have a beer or a coffee or something like that. It was through a glass a couple of times, but that's a little bit governed, shall you say, right? But I hope to get to know you more in the future, and I really appreciate all the information that you have put out, because I have learned a lot, both directly from you and indirectly from you, based on people you mentioned that I go and look and so on. Like I remember Larkin Rose, I've heard through you, I think. Mark Stevens, and through Mark Stevens I found about Lysander Spooner, and some of the people in England, and that other guy down in the States, I forget his name now. But anyways, a lot of it has stemmed from what I've learned from you, so I want to put out a big thank you for that. And I admire you, man. And the world needs more people who are willing to live their conscience in whatever emotional set, whatever that happens to be. As long as it's genuine, as yours seems to be, then I think the world can be a better place. Anyways, great chatting again. Talk again soon. Bye-bye for now.